right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, without a clogged ear. A lot has changed since Friday, and I'm joined by my reoccurring guest,
Mr. Solis.
All right, sir. So it's been quite a while since the last pay-per-view for WWE. So how have you been during that time? Anything new?
Oh, I've been fine. You're right. Yeah, since Wrestlemania, we're here to talk about the Backlash of Wrestlemania. Yeah. And in the interim, I turned 35 years old, and we're back in the building at school with about 10% of the kids.
And last I remember, you said those were like kids that you guys deemed like needed like extra help, right?
It's true. Yeah, half of them are seniors who, you know, hopefully in 4 weeks, cross that stage, which is going to be a real stage that people cross in person at the LA Coliseum, no less. Wow. And then a half of them are your underclassmen whom, you know, really showed a need to be in person with a teacher, and it's really working for some students. You know, it's really cute to see them, you know, acting a fool, and then I go, what's going on? They go, mister, I just turned in 3 assignments. And you go, well, right on. Okay, good for you. Jack, you know exactly the environment. It would be like that makeup day, right? It's just happening sooner, and that it's happening at all is a blessing entirely.
Yeah, and it's really good to hear that you guys are able to get them in like that safely and get a lot of help, because I know how much a lot of people are struggling with a lot of online classes, especially being thrust into them so abruptly. You know, it was kind of hard to transition.
Yeah, Jack, any news about UCLA and how it's going to change things, if at all?
I think they're still taking it like month by month, because they don't want to announce that, you know, they're going to be doing the in-person schooling, and then like give that hope just for like, who knows, in the next couple months maybe something happens, and then now they have to go back on their word and start telling people, look, we can't, you know. So yeah. I think they're taking a month by month approach where they're like letting us know, hey, we hope and still kind of like have plans set to, like, if we're able to be in person, but we also have plans that if we're not able to, we still have plans to continue with online schooling, and as we take it month by month, we'll update you. I know they have I think they're called like town halls, where like they like, I think it's every month students can tune in and like they listen and ask any questions to the people running them about certain things, and that's, I think, mainly where they talk about a lot of the updates on whether or not we'll be in school or not.
I think it's funny that you said that they don't want to say something that they might have to take back, because I think it's very in line with their character of who USC is. They want to say it. They want to be the first to say it, and they're going to puff their chest and say, we said it right away. We were coming back. If they got to take it back, they're just going to pretend like they didn't say it, Jack. It's just a funny way of life.
But, you know, thankfully everything's been going well. I do know what I at least plan to major in, and I already spoke with the person about how to change it and what I need to do in preparations to change it.
All right, I'm excited. Yeah, is that something you'd like to share here, or is it a big mystery to me and the audience?
Well, I purposely left it out to get your reaction to this, because it would probably be, or I don't know how much of a surprise it would be to you, but like a lot of other people would probably find it a surprise. But I already got in contact. There's a couple of classes I need to take before fully switching as like a prerequisite. But I am hopefully planning to change to an art history major.
Whoa! My word! That's incredible, Jack. I know you've talked about sort of feeling more comfortable on the history side of things. Oh, this is wild. Art history, huh?
So do you want to hear, like, real quickly for the podcast how this came to be?
Please, because I'll tell you what, Jack. Backlash, WrestleMania Backlash. We have time. Please, Jack, tell us how you came to this important decision.
So, as I've told this story to my dad before, so, you know, I've always kind of been a person that was, like, interested in art. But, like, one of the biggest, like, biggest flaws and downfalls to me is that when it comes to a lot of different things, I have this mentality that if I'm not good at it right away, then I should just drop it, you know? And that's happened a lot. Like, it happened with art a lot. It happened, you know, with other type of hobbies I tried to pick up. But, like, art was always something that came back to me, and, like, I would always try and get into it. But it was always that process of struggling to get through that first part where your art isn't as great as you want it to be, and it only gets better as you improve it. And so I remember taking art with you my freshman year, and then second year art with Miss and then junior year I didn't take any art class. And during this period, it was kind of like a thing that I just kind of fell out with art. I didn't really have much of an interest. But as it came to senior year, something started to call to me to take 2D studio art, the AP class, for my senior year. I don't know what it was. Something was calling for me to take it. And I remember the people at the school didn't want me to take because they wanted me much rather to take English and AP Gov. And so it ended up between Gov and art, and everyone was leaning towards telling me to take Gov, but I told them, no, there's something within me calling me to take studio art. And so I took it, and through taking that with Miss I kind of like, my love for art was like reignited through that. Because like I started going through the practice, I started like listening more and more to what Miss had to teach me about like improving my different techniques for art. And through that, you know, I found a love to now where you see on my Instagram a lot, I'll post a lot of the different arts I do. I've invested a lot into it. And then this is the part that got me to art history, was that during my first semester, I had taken, I think it was like a sociology intro class. But the thing was, I didn't know, I had already gotten credits for that from a class I took during high school.
Dope.
And so they told me I would get 0 credits, so I had to find a class. And the only class that I found like left was a museum studies class, which was an art history class.
Yeah.
Taking that class, I was so interested in that and the different, like, because it combined art with analysis, which is one of my biggest skills I demonstrate through this podcast. And so it combined those two, and I just found it really interesting, to where the next quarter I found another art history class. And this one was actually like, it's a whole class, but it's split between the 3 quarters. So I ended up taking the second part because I didn't know about it first quarter, but I took the second part. And I got so interested in that and analyzing the art in that class, you know, and did really well that I ended up taking it this semester, the third part this semester. And like after like just examining all my options, I said, why not just try and run with it, see how far it takes me, because I obviously have an interest. I have a lot of like, I do a lot of good work, and it has that analysis skill that I originally wanted to use towards like some type of career. And so I said, why not?
Sure, absolutely. Well, that's incredible, Jack. I'm really excited to hear that trajectory, that, you know, that sequence of events. And I'm excited to have played just even the smallest role in that journey. And I'm really excited for you. You'd be surprised about how much of the world was documented in art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The history of our existence can be told through the art that's been uncovered and that was made in its time. What was the world like that produced this thing? What, you know, the story that it's telling, how does it relate to the world outside of the studio where it was made? Goodness gracious.
Yeah. Very much long-term storytelling right there.
That's so good.
And so I'll use that to transition into today's topic, as you mentioned, Wrestlemania Backlash. Which, as Marco found very confusing when he saw me watching it, why is it called Wrestlemania Backlash and not just Backlash?
You have any thoughts, Jack, why they went with that?
I actually had I couldn't come up with any type of, reasoning. I couldn't find a reason. I couldn't even think of a headcanon for it. I was like...
I remember in the early 2000s when we had our Hooks Backlash, during the Attitude Era, it was either on a poster or it was in a commercial. Somebody said in a passing line, they characterized all the matches as the Backlash of WrestleMania, right? And it never occurred to me that there was any relation between the two. Backlash did often come after WrestleMania, and so many of those matches were kind of rematches or, holdover feuds from WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a revenge tour. They also had like revenge tours, if you remember, like seeing those in ads. The SummerSlam revenge tour. Yeah. So there's a precedent. It's just really funny the way they did this.
Yeah, and as we'll see later on in the night, it kind of shows that maybe they might be, like as I showed my dad, they might be starting this process of rotating the monthly pay-per-view so that it's not like set in stone of when one pay-per-view will happen.
Oh, sure. That'd be really nice because like this time last year, we were talking about
Money in the Bank.
Really? Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the process, like I mentioned, how that's becomes kind of set in stone these past couple of years where, okay, we're done with WrestleMania, now it's time for Money in the Bank. This is probably set, this is going to be used, off the momentum of Mania to start building a long-term story of who is either being elevated to the main event scene through the Money in the Bank or, maybe like someone who's been in the main event scene but kind of been stagnant is now getting on a roll through Money in the Bank. And then we usually see like essentially filler pay-per-views for the most part to fill that way to build up to SummerSlam. And then it's a build to Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, then Mania. Where, as we'll see later on, I like that they're switching it up because now it's not going to be set in stone to the point where, like when it comes to something like Hell in a Cell, where before it was a match, used to end a feud. Right. Now hopefully it changes back to that, so that instead of it being back when it was in like September or October as, oh, well, we're having Hell in a Cell matches because we need to fill a pay-per-view.
Jack, I saw a video this morning, and I don't want to squash your dreams of long-term storytelling or, being intentional with these match types, but somebody posited that the move for Hell in a Cell, which you've alluded to, could have less to do with authenticating the match type and more to do with freeing up their calendar for a certain overseas trip to Saudi Arabia in October. They just needed to do some shuffling. That's a really cynical way of looking at it, but we'll see how that plans out.
Yeah. But
the night starts with a video package narrated by Dave Bautista, and I was very surprised to hear him, but he's promoting the movie, and I really liked the approach it took, which was characterizing all of the new champions from WrestleMania who had their moment to celebrate, but now they've got the target on their back. Yeah. So it showed Rhea, Bianca Belair, it showed Lashley and Roman as, the victors of WrestleMania, but that they were all going to have to put their titles up again tonight.
Yeah. And as you mentioned about as sort of a reasoning for the WrestleMania Backlash, a lot of these matches are built upon, rerunning the couple of matches, maybe with a couple of differences in them, or reigniting feud. And much so, our first match starts off with the triple threat for the Raw Women's Championship between champion Rhea Ripley versus Asuka and Charlotte Flair.
We're going to get to the action, but Jack, I have to ask you, what on earth was Charlotte wearing?
I noticed that too, and I was kind of thrown off by it.
It took some doing. It took some digging. It's a reference to Cruella, which is going to be on Disney Plus, a new movie starring Emma Stone that characterizes like a young up-and-coming Cruella DeVille. Do you know who Cruella DeVille is, Jack?
It sounds familiar.
It's the villain from the 101 Dalmatians.
Ah, okay.
So she was the fashionista who wanted the dogs to kill them and make a big coat out of them. So she's got her own movie coming out, and I thought, why is Charlotte dressed like a cow?
It
was Dalmatian spots, Jack.
Dalmatian. It threw me off too. I mean, guess it fits with the heel nature of Charlotte, so essentially wear that, and that was the villain's intent.
this new movie, Cruella, I think is supposed to be building her up as the face. I think she's like a young up-and-comer in the fashion world that won't let her, be herself. I'm trying to think of another movie that took a villain and and really created an empathetic look at them. Yeah, so it's exciting. Looks good. Charlotte, it's interesting. It's interesting, Jack.
Yeah, and so what did you think of the match?
I had more to say about the outfit than the match, Jack.
Yeah, honestly, decent opening match, but I like there wasn't really much to it to me. Like, I'm still struggling with this whole thing of just not seeing much chemistry between Asuka and Rhea. Mm-hmm. Charlotte kind of helped by, being in a lot of different spots and kind of like essentially not giving us just a rerun of their Mania match. Right.
Yeah, she was the new detail to that WrestleMania rematch. And I did draw a little face with rolling eyes because I was listing moves and I just rolled my eyes at how often the better moves were Charlotte's, because I always catch myself doing this, Jack. It's like, dang it, she's the best part of the stupid thing, isn't she? Isn't she?
Yeah, and honestly, like, it was good, but like, when what seems to happen most after a lot of the Raw Women's Championship matches for me is that, like, I always start thinking, okay, well, based on this finish, where do we go now? And most importantly, okay, maybe she, like, this was my thinking throughout the match. I was like, okay, maybe if, Rhea beats Asuka, like, pins her instead of Charlotte, they'll carry that on till the next pay-per-view, and Rhea hopefully beats Charlotte at the next pay-per-view. But then my thought goes to, well, then, like, kind of like what my mindset was a lot with during Asuka's reign. It was, well, where do we go from here? Because as of right now, you don't really got a bunch of credible challengers, and most of the ones that you could throw into a feud are stuck in the tag division.
I'm very, very excited, Jack, to be recording with you today, talking about Sunday's event on Tuesday, because we let Monday play out, Monday Night Raw, and there's a lot that we would have pontificated and we would have sort of fantasy booked, and we've got a clear picture after yesterday. Because you're right. Rhea pinned Asuka. Charlotte was not a factor. She was outside. So you think, well, we're running Charlotte versus Rhea. But what happened on Monday, Jack?
Asuka beat Charlotte, and I'm pretty sure it was clean. Or not like fully clean, but she got the pin on her.
And what's wild is Charlotte was just running down all them other female competitors who were in the tag division who were clogging up Adam Pearce's office and telling them, hey, you had your shot and you blew it, right? Can you imagine? I like a heel that's got egg on their face, but you gotta make it look like the egg that's on your face. Flair, Vince, they all what I mean? Like, they'd show you, oh, I got caught. Dang it. You know what I mean? She just has this, she's still trying to save face. Stop it. Be a little indignified.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of John Cena's run, where, like, whenever he got beat, he kind of just carried on as if nothing had happened, or like if it didn't affect him,
Mm-hmm, like, obviously, because it really didn't, right?
Yeah, like later on in his run, he let those losses affect him, and he showed it through his promos. But like early on, John Cena, because of them setting him up to be that face of the company during that era, you rarely saw those losses affect him, and you're kind of seeing the same with Charlotte, where it doesn't really affect them because, like you said, it really doesn't in like the whole like picture sense. Because much like Cena, Charlotte right now can just show up and get title opportunities as she's shown.
Mm-hmm. She is the opportunity, Jack.
But decent opening match.
Decent.
But we move on to a match that a lot of people were surprised wasn't on WrestleMania itself, but they run it back here for Backlash. Rey and Dominic Mysterio versus Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler for the SmackDown Tag Team titles.
Mm-hmm. before the match starts, we learned that during the pre-show, Dominic was jumped by the tag team champions, beaten up backstage, looked at by a medic, and determined unable to compete in the match. They're going to run it. Ray's going to go out there by himself, and he insists that his baby boy stay in the back because he's too hurt.
And honestly, I was surprised that, like I guess, like, going into it, I was like, well, are they going to make him have some type of, like, fill-in partner, like a surprise partner? And maybe, like, have them lose so that at the next pay-per-view they can continue on saying, well, Dominic wasn't there, so you truly didn't beat us. Or even run the storyline that we see a lot of times where someone has a surprise partner and they beat the tag team titles.
Can I tell you what I thought was going to happen? I thought that Dominic I thought that story was going to lead to him turning on his dad. And telling him, you baby me too much, you don't know, and just, go out there but leave him hanging because he's had it with his, like, coddling.
Yeah, I definitely felt that a lot, especially because of, like, the way he kind of was, like, eyeing him when he was telling him, no, you got to stay back here, I'll do it on my own.
Yeah.
And I do have a feeling we'll more than likely get that turn somewhere down the line, potentially.
Yep, we didn't get it here. Ray's funny. I guess because he's as old as he is, and like he just is able to do so much. And I think, God, the only way you can really make sense of how good he is against two formidable men is that he's like OP. He's like a video game character whose like rating is higher than the two of theirs.
Yeah, and it was during this match that like I started thinking about, because they mentioned, in comparison to Dominic Mysterio, Rude and Ziggler are very much veterans. Mm-hmm. And when they mentioned that, it made me think, and much like you bring up the ratings, I was like thinking about it and I was like, does Rey Mysterio have more experience than Ziggler and Rude combined? Because I started thinking, I'm like, he was competing in the 90s, and then the 2000s, the 2010s, and he's still even competing now into the 2020s. I'm like, I kind of started trying to do the math of how much like total experience he has, and I was like, man, Mysterio's really been in it for a long time, but I guess maybe it's because he started so young.
Yeah, it has everything to do with how young he started. And Ziggler, I don't know if he's ever been anywhere than the WWE.
Yeah, I know Rude came from TNA. But yeah, I don't think Ziggler. I think he's been a WWE guy all this time, because I think I would have heard if he had popped up anywhere before.
So Ziggler's been wrestling since 2004. And while I look this up, tell us, Jack, what happened? We had Rey Mysterio holding his own, really. So not having it for long because Rude and Ziggler was using the numbers game against him. I like the Trio Woe spot. That was really good. And it's like a testament to how good Rey is. He got into that Trio Woe spot so smoothly.
Yeah, and, he really, like, Rey truly is, like, one of the, like, pure, like, white meat baby faces that, like, still lasts because, as we see a lot, usually, like, it's difficult for them to run those type of baby faces, but Rey just kind of does it so perfectly, like, throughout the match. He really sells a lot of the different offense, even with his kickouts. When there was a lot of times that Rude and Ziggler were hitting a lot of double team moves, a lot of times, like, it was like he barely got the shoulder, kind of selling that, yeah, he's really struggling to kind of pull it off against these two guys, but he's putting in everything for it.
Jack, Bobby Roode had his debut match in 1998. Rey Mysterio's been wrestling since 1989.
Dang.
That's in Mexico.
Wow, so he may have more experience than both now that I think about it, yeah.
Oh, certainly more than both combined. That's not so much. He's got about 10 years on Rude.
Yeah,
but goodness gracious.
Wow. But I really enjoyed this tag match, especially because, as I always seem to mention on a lot of these pay-per-views, you don't see a lot of good tag action much these days.
No, you're right. And the result really kind of put a lot of shimmer on those titles, It's exciting to see somebody excited to have the titles.
Yeah.
right? It's like a really important feat. And, to jump to the end, Rey Mysterio and Dominic clinch the SmackDown Tag Team titles. And what's so significant about their holding the titles, Jack?
They're the first, or I think they mentioned they're the first. I don't know, maybe potentially it's happened outside of WWE, more than likely maybe, but they mentioned that they're the first father and son to win the tag titles together.
Mm-hmm. I'm hard-pressed to think of anybody else who's done it, even outside of WWE, or like even who could, right? How many people have wrestled simultaneously with their father or their son?
Yeah.
Like Dusty and Goldust, or Dusty and Dustin Rhodes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like late WCW or NWA, they might have done it, but I don't think so.
Oh, maybe like Rick and David Flair or something like that.
One name that's coming to mind, but I don't know. I think I'm more so confusing it just with how long he wrestled. Terry Funk, maybe. But
Terry had a brother. I don't think his father was a wrestler. Could have been,
but and since Mania, I think they've done a really good job with. Like, obviously, they don't have a lot of tag teams at the current moment, but they both at Mania and here, like you mentioned, they kind of made it seem like a big deal to hold these titles. For Rey and Dominic, it was, being father and son holding these tag titles. For AJ and Omos, for Omos, it was it being his first title in the WWE and his debut match, and AJ, it was finally becoming that Grand Slam champion.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Like, for these accolades to be built up like they have, it helps. I wish they did more. They did it more often.
Yeah.
Can I share, Jack, the one thing that really I couldn't get over in this match? And I try to enjoy myself. I was working at the same time. But Dominic, he comes out for the save. He's clenching his ribs. He's going to make the hot tag. He's going to fight the battle wounds he incurred in the back. And Rey, the sympathetic father, is like, no, stay back, right? But, like, at that point of the match, who's more hurt, him or Dominic?
Yeah.
And is Dominic not just, 10 minutes into a really arduous match hurt?
Yeah. And, Rey goes 5 more minutes, doing that before finally he just tags out for the first time, and then they let
He really does. Dressed as Batman, we haven't mentioned, but it's important to mention.
Yeah. Really good tag match. New champions should hopefully liven it up. I expect a rematch either sometime on SmackDown or built for the next pay-per-view, but after that, I think fresh matchups come into play now, because then, though we've seen a lot of the different matchups on TV, we don't see them for the title. So now, you can book it as the Mysterios can defend against Gable and Otis, the Street Profits.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of just shows how small their tag division is right now. I can't think of anyone else.
The Usos.
Oh, yeah, correct.
A contentious pair of Usos, perhaps.
But so feel good moment, and we move on now to Damian Priest versus The Miz in a lumberjack match. We
should point out that before this match, John Morrison, Johnny Drip Drip, he's trying to tell The Miz that he's going to ensure his victory by enticing the lumberjacks, the men who will surround the ring during this match, so that they operate on his behalf, in his favor, right, Jack?
Yeah.
He goes to the lumberjack locker room. They have a locker room titled Lumberjacks, and he opens it, and what does he find, Jack?
Zombies.
He runs away. They pour out of the room. They, Jack, are going to serve as the lumberjacks for this match. Zombies.
And I found it really funny. This is obviously tying into Dave Bautista opening up the show with the opening package. This ties into promoting his new movie that was coming out. But one of the funniest things I saw after this all happened, obviously a lot of people were getting mad about it and, obviously showing frustration that oh, why are we doing this? This is like too silly. Imagine that, too silly for pro wrestling.
Right.
People forget a lot of the things that have gone down in pro wrestling. Potentially much worse than this, as we know. But the funniest thing I saw from this was someone saying, hey, I don't know why everyone's so mad about this. Those zombies were perfect lumberjacks. They were fair and didn't side with one side. And they even waited till the very end to get into the ring to eat the Miz.
It's incredible with how much fidelity they treated the rules of the match. I think the person who had the line of the night, a lot of people have felt differently and really polarized about these lumberjacks zombies. MVP on Twitter said, like, quoting people saying, ugh, ruining the business with these zombies. Also, Undertaker's my favorite wrestler.
I saw that one too, and everyone was trying to be like, oh, MVP, that's different. And I was like, I mean, you can't really say it's different. That's an undead man wrestling.
I'll tell you what, Jack. It may be my favorite Damian Priest match ever. Because, you know what, I really was grinding my gears about at NXT was how much focus and attention the guy was getting that I felt was undeserved. That some of that attention was deviated with Bad Bunny in WrestleMania, you know, so it was like he was more palatable. I'm like, okay, he's not being shoved down my throat. He's actually kind of borrowing the shine from something else. Here, it's something very similar, Jack. We're talking about a Damian Priest match, but what's my focus on?
The zombies.
I'm just saying, it works well for the guy that there's something else working with him.
Yeah, and honestly, like, he definitely, like, shined a lot of, like, the comedic aspects throughout this. Like, I mean, everyone did, because, like, when you have the zombies there, like, Morrison was on the outside trying to do parkour to either attack them or avoid them.
The commentators ran away from their table. One of them was underneath. I thought the reveals were really good. There's one that popped up underneath. Some were coming. What's nice was, Jack, these weren't like, you know, extras, like walking in a single file line from the Tron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were coming from behind the barriers. They were coming from the stage. They were coming from under the ring. It was good. Visually, it was so good.
Yeah, it was like one thing that like people need to start doing more when it comes to stuff like this is just enjoy it, have fun with it. Not everything is supposed to be ultra serious, and that's what I felt like this. Like, yes, this was like a filler match for the pay-per-view, but it was still very much sports entertaining.
It was my match of the night. I mean, you know, we got some other matches to talk about, but it's the one that like really made this show worth watching for me. And I honestly, Jack, was worried. I love talking to you. I look forward to it, but I was real worried. I'm like, we're going to have a real dry conversation. I'm really excited. You made your major decision, was ready to tell us about that. But this match was like, it's the Aleister Black getting thrown off a building moment. It's the Braun Strowman's drowning in a swamp moment. It's the Fiend burned alive in the middle of the ring moment. Are we going to pretend like it didn't happen? I don't know. We saw Johnny Drip Drip appear on Raw fighting Damian Priest in a follow-up match. We didn't see the Miz.
Yeah, because the post-match angle is Damian Priest wins, and as soon as he wins, he books it. He's out of there. He's not waiting. The zombies crawl in, and we're supposed to assume they eat the Miz. And much essentially sadder news, but also very praiseful for it. This is essentially the way they wrote off the Miz, because for the first time in his like 15-year career, he's finally suffered a big-time injury, which I think was he tore his ACL.
You know, it worked out really perfectly, right? Like, he tore his ACL, so he's got to be off TV. They didn't have the zombies eat him because of the injury. They were always going to have the zombies eat him. They must be wiping their brow that they don't have to come up with what happened after that.
Yeah.
Because we saw the same fate befall John Morrison, and he seemed fine. Just like Aleister Black and Rey Mysterio, just like Braun Strowman, right? We're just going to, you know, they're fine. They're cartoon characters. Wile E. Coyote falls off the cliff, he dusts himself back off, and he gets up again.
And it's funny, because in my notes, I had wrote in writing off Miz question marks. And what do you know, like the next day, yeah, it was essentially their way of like not intentionally writing off The Miz, but that was his write-off for surgery now.
Be really funny if when he comes back, he talks about, I'm The Miz and I love brains. I mean, you know what I mean? That'd be really funny.
But so, pretty entertaining match, and most people should just take it as that.
Yeah, get over yourselves.
And so the next match is not necessarily Backlash for Mania, but continuing off a previous feud that happened post-Mania. Bayley versus Bianca Belair, her first defense of the SmackDown Women's title.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like this one was similar to the Banks Belair match at Mania, where they were going with, you know, this type of like rookie versus pro type story with it, with Bayley being this pro and considering Belair the rookie.
And I don't know if it came up in commentary or if I've just heard podcasts bring it up, but it's like funny to remember Bayley as the side ponytail hugger character, you know what I mean? Because she's come just so far from there, right? And it shows in her character work and in her wrestling style. And I'm really excited to have been reminded of that. It makes me appreciate her a little more.
Yeah, and honestly, like, with a lot of wrestlers now, it seems like, where at least certain wrestlers where it's like, when they turn heel, it's kind of hard to see them go back. Like, I can't imagine Bayley going back to...
That's so funny. There's so many wrestlers I've had the exact same thought, Jack, but it's going to happen. She's too good. She's too funny.
Yeah.
At WrestleMania, she was getting cheered over the Bellas.
Yeah, I don't think she'll go back to, like, her previous look. I think they'll find a way to incorporate a new look for face Bayley, where I think thankfully now that they see, like, how she is, like, as a heel, they'll let her, whenever she turns face, kind of be like a Drew McIntyre face, where they're not oblivious and, you know, easily fooled, where because Bayley's, you know, funny and smart, she'll be able to use that to her advantage as a face.
She's wizened.
Yeah. And so, like, I really enjoyed this story, and, like, you see it throughout the match how Bayley is constantly trying to, like, through her pro mentality, try and use different things to get an advantage over Belair.
Yeah, I not gonna lie, Jack, I didn't enjoy this one as much as the Sasha match, in part because it's Bianca's first defense, and you just think, I'm hard-pressed to think she's gonna lose tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was hard to, like, put away. It was hard to put that thought away so I could enjoy the match for the match's sake.
Yeah, like, I don't think at any point whenever Bayley was trying to get that advantage did I think, oh, she might pull it off. Because I was like, no, there's no way you have Belair win the Rumble from number 3 and go on this huge, you know, long adventure just to have her lose in the first defense. Whereas with the Rhea Asuka Flair match, I was like, well, they might make Rhea lose it in her first defense because it's Charlotte, and they might go the route of what they did the previous year when she lost her NXT title to Charlotte and run this story of she wasn't prepared. But then
and there being a third woman, you know, there's so many other ways for that match to have gone in a different, for Rhea to have lost. You know, and you go, ugh, there's too many lurking variables for me to be absolutely certain you're not going to ruin this. This one, you know, we were always going to get a good affair, a good bout. But Leaping Lizards, how is Bianca not going to win this?
Yeah. And you even see Belair kind of like showing that pro mentality by when Bayley tries to grab her ponytail to get the advantage, Belair turns it around, and that's what leads her to getting the win.
Yes, and when we talk about what's next, because she uses her hair, you think, oh, we're not done with Bayley. She didn't lose that clean as a whistle. No, she's going to pout and stir a fuss over the nature of her loss at Backlash.
Yeah, and I think this prolongs it maybe one more, either like pay-per-view or one more month on SmackDown, and then finally when Banks is back from recording or filming stuff for The Mandalorian, I think we get her. I think we got either a feud of her or maybe they have her return in time for SummerSlam to run that type of like big match rematch, and maybe at like the pay-per-view before they run like some type of filler with either like, I don't know, someone like Carmella or something.
Maybe. Yeah, but for folks who didn't see it, Bianca Belair with her 5-foot long ponytail uses it to wrap Bayley's leg in a pinning position, kind of giving her a slightly greater leverage over Bayley in the pit. Is it illegal, Jack?
I wouldn't.
It's not a foreign object; it's her body.
Yeah, I would think that's just the same as, you know, when you get them like in that certain position, you put both arms leveraging the legs downward. If
I like the moral quandary it creates.
Yeah, but so decent affair. Now we move on to the next match and the second triple threat of the night. And honestly, a lot of people kind of didn't know how to feel going into the match because it's Bobby Lashley, WWE Champion, defending his title against Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman. And people didn't know how to feel because Bobby's had the title since, the second week after Elimination Chamber, I believe.
Yes.
And he's defended the title a couple of times. He defended it at Mania. And so going into this, people didn't know whether, does Drew get it back? Are they going to run with Strowman as champion? Does Bobby retain? So it kind of had that mix up where, unlike the first triple threat, this one kind of had a thing where people were wondering, out of the three, there's like different options that they can go to as of any of the three can win, and they'll have like maybe some way to go with it.
It's sad that in the first triple threat, no one thought Asuka was going to win.
Yeah.
But this one, you're right. Each had a very accessible entry point to the title.
And I went back to watch because when I was watching this, at the time my parents had just come back from the store, so I had to go help them with the groceries. And Peacock still doesn't have the option to pause when you're watching live, so I missed the first part, had to go back and watch it. But the crazy thing is, the first part I came back to was they're fighting on the ramp, and then Lashley gets thrown through LED boards.
That's wild, right? How much time we got, Jack?
Oh, I just noticed. 2 minutes.
Yeah, I saw Strowman, was it powerbomb Drew into the announce table?
Yeah, I noticed that one as well.
This match had some big old moves.
Yeah, and mainly due to the size of all three men, it was truly like a hoss fight between all three men.
Hoss fight is a perfect way of describing this match.
Yeah,
I think this match is so big, Jack, that it's going to barrel through the end of this episode and spill into the next episode.
Good tie-in right there. Well, we'll close off here. We hope to see y'all in part 2 of this, where I'm thankful we get to go into part 2 because that means we get to go in extra long on the main event.
And I've got a big question to ask you, Jack, after we're done talking about Backlash.
All right, sir. So we'll close it off here, and we hope you'll tune in to the next episode.